Case of a great old champion, Barrera, moving into the ring for the last time and finding that his fire had burned out. Pacquiao had something to do with that, of course, and now he's contemplating a step up into the Diaz division, which used to be called the lightweight division. 3 of the lightweight titles will be contested by 2 of the Diazes tonight. Pacquiao has his eye on the 3rd Diaz with the 4th title. That's David Diaz of Chicago. And if he was in the ring tonight, Bob, we might have a crowd instead of a gathering.
We are some 35 miles northwest of downtown Chicago in Hoffman Estates, Illinois, but it does shape up to be a fantastic fight. And speaking of fantastic, the close to the 2007 boxing calendar is a special one. Let's take a look at HBO's boxing calendar. On November the 3rd, World Championship Boxing returns with a 168-pound unification fight between undefeated champions Joe Calzaghe and Miguel Kessler. That fight will air live from Cardiff, Wales at a special time of 9 p.m. Eastern. Immediately following Calzaghe-Kessler, stick around for Countdown to Cotto Mosley, a documentary-style look ahead to their upcoming 147-pound title fight. Then 1 week later, it's the live fight between Miguel Cotto and Shane Mosley with Cotto's welterweight title at stake. On November the 17th, Boxing After Dark brings you a great matchup from the junior lightweight division when Johan Guzman risks his title against Humberto Soto. On November the 18th, it's the premiere of our special 4-episode series, Mayweather-Hatton 24/7. We'll take our cameras to Las Vegas and Manchester, England, for a behind-the-scenes peek at both Floyd Mayweather and Ricky Hatton as they ready themselves for their upcoming mega matchup. Then on December the 8th, HBO pay-per-view brings you the live fight between Mayweather and Hatton with the welterweight championship of the world at stake. Coming up after our main event this evening, Juan Diaz against Julio Diaz, with Marco Antonio Barrera's loss last week and him announcing his retirement, and with Erik Morales losing earlier this summer to David Diaz and his impending retirement. It really is the end of an era. Larry Merchant will take a closer look at that era and both men, Erik Morales and Marco Antonio Barrera. And speaking of eras, 2 of the greatest fighters of their era will duke it out in the ring at Madison Square Garden on January the 19th on HBO pay-per-view as Roy Jones Jr. squares off against Felix Tito Trinidad. Both fighters are standing by with Larry Merchant.
Thank you, Bob. Roy, what made it so difficult, after all, to retire?
I should say God. I mean, you know, it's like you retire when your time comes. When you know your time coming, that's when you retire.
Why didn't your time come, and what do you expect to accomplish now?
My time didn't come because my ending didn't go out the way he wanted to go out. So he showed me that. He showed me what he wanted me to do, and I got to come back and do what it is I'm supposed to do. I have a job that only I know, and I got to fulfill that dream and do that job.
Do you see this as a gateway to fighting so many of the top fighters in the 168-pound and light heavyweight class today?
It's a gateway, but I'm not going to fight many of them. I'm going to do 1 or 2 at a time. I mean, I do 1, maybe 3 next year, and I'm done.
Thank you, Roy. Tito, nice to see you again. Tito, you won all of your fights as a welterweight and a junior middleweight. But as a middleweight, you lost 2 fights decisively to Hopkins and Wright. Why can you step up to 170 pounds against Roy Jones and be successful?
Bueno, yo voy a estar preparado para ese día. Roy Jones es un gran peleador.
I'm going to be prepared. Roy Jones is a great boxer.
Pero yo voy a estar preparado para ganar el día 19 de enero.
But I'll be ready to win the 19th.
Do you think that he is vulnerable to your power?
¿Crees que es vulnerable a tu poder o a tu potencia?
No, de verdad que sé que va a ser un gran combate, pero en realidad
it's going to be a great fight, but
vengo preparado para vencer a Roy Jones como quiera.
I'm prepared to fight him and beat him either way.
Aunque sé que él es un boxeador muy rápido, un boxeador rápido en el ring, pero yo estoy preparado para eso.
I know he's a fast boxer in the ring, but I'm well prepared, and I will beat him.
Thank you, Tito, very much. Bob?
All right, Larry, so January the 19th, Madison Square Garden, New York City. Felix Trinidad against Roy Jones Jr. on HBO pay-per-view. Now we turn our focus to tonight's main event, Juan Diaz against Julio Diaz, with a lightweight unification on tap. Joining me here at ringside, former undisputed heavyweight champion of the world, Lennox Lewis. Juan Diaz, he's 24 years of age. He's unbeaten. He's a puncher with a lot of pressure. Can Julio Diaz burst his balloon?
I don't know about that, because he's definitely got a power punch as well, but he's also got quickness, and he's prepared to move around the ring. He's not prepared to sit in one place, and he wants to box out there. But what you're gonna see is a lot of fireworks in there and a lot of punches, so it should be an exciting fight.
All right, we are set for our main event, Juan Diaz against Julio Diaz. Let's take a look at the tail of the tape for Diaz versus Diaz. Juan Diaz at 24 years of age. The height advantage goes to Julio Diaz. The arm length from the armpit to the fist in favor of Julio Diaz. Both fighters made the 135-pound weight limit comfortably. Julio Diaz rehydrated to 144 pounds. Juan Diaz to 142. Now time for the rules with our unofficial ringside scorer, Harold Letterman.
Of boxing commissions. There is no 3 knockdown rule. Only the referee can stop the fight. In case it is caused by an accidental headbutt, we go to the scorecards if the 4 rounds have been completed, and you cannot be saved by the bell in any round, including the 12th and final round. Bob!
First to enter the arena, Julio Diaz. He's 27 years of age from Coachella, California. Larry, he turned pro at the age of 19. It has not been a path paved with gold.
Well, he was the kid brother of 3 professional fighters. His older brother, Antonio, fought Shane Mosley. He was a young star at the age of 21, had a couple of setbacks, and has had to fight his way back to this position. And despite the fact that he has 3 children, he still can't shave. He can raise a beard, but he doesn't have to shave on his cheeks. So he's still a young man for somebody who has been around a while.
Turned pro in February of 1999, 197 rounds as a professional. Won the championship back in February, has not fought since February the 3rd when he knocked out Jesus Chavez, who was injured in that fight with a right knee injury, and that's where he got his lightweight belt.
You'll notice that he spells kid with 2 D's on his trunks and on his robe. Once upon a time, there were dozens of fighters called Kid, but I don't know any of them that were Kid with 2 D's.
He said it looked better on his trunks, and that's why he put the extra D in Kid. We're at the Sears Center in Hoffman Estates, Illinois. And here comes the baby bull, El Torito, Juan Diaz, 32-0 with 16 knockouts by way of Houston, Texas, making his 7th title defense. And Larry, when you take a look at Juan Diaz, some intrigue for this young fighter because his regular trainer is not with him, Ronnie Shields.
Yeah, Ronnie Shields elected to go with Evander Holyfield for a heavyweight title challenge in Russia, which actually took place this afternoon, our time. And if you haven't heard yet, Holyfield lost a unanimous decision. Where that puts him in the future of Diaz is uncertain, but his assistant, who has been with Diaz for 15 years, will be in the corner.
Derwin Richards is the man that assumes the control in the corner of Juan Diaz. Juan Diaz last fought on April the 28th here on HBO's Boxing After Dark, an 8th round stoppage of Acelino Freitas to take Freitas's lightweight belt. Time for the introductions with our ring announcer, Michael Buffer.
Ladies and gentlemen, from the greater metropolitan area of Chicago, welcome to the Sears Center here in Hoffman Estates, Illinois, where tonight Don King Productions is proud to present HBO Boxing After Dark. This is the main event of the evening. 12 rounds of boxing for the lightweight Championship of the World. Sponsored by Don King Productions, Tito Trinidad versus Roy Jones Jr. Battle of Boxing Legends, live on HBO pay-per-view, January 19th. Sanctioned by the World Boxing Organization President Francisco Pago Barcarcel, the World Boxing Association President Gilberto Mendoza, and the International Boxing Federation President Marian Mohammed. Sanctioned by and governed by the rules and regulations of the Illinois Department of Financial and Professional Regulation. Director of Boxing, Ron Puccillo. Executive Manager, Joel Campuzano. At ringside, the 3 judges scoring this bout on the 10-point system. Ted Gimza, Bill Lurch, and Nelson Vasquez. And inside the ring, your referee in charge of the action, Gino Rodriguez. And now, for the thousands in attendance here at the Sears Center and the millions watching around the world, ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready to rumble! Fighting out of the blue corner, wearing green, trimmed with white, official weight, 135 pounds. Professional record, 34 victories, including 25 knockouts, only 3 defeats. From Coachella, California, the reigning and defending IBF lightweight champion of the world, Julio, the Kid Diaz. And fighting out of the red corner, wearing blue, official weight also 135 pounds. A perfect professional record consisting of 32 bouts, 32 victories, including 16 knockouts. From Houston, Texas, the reigning and defending undefeated WBA, WBO lightweight champion of the world, Juan, the Baby Bull Diaz.
We're ready here.
You got your hands full tonight.
We got it.
But they're in good hands, though. They're in good hands.
Go, Juan, Julio. Okay, gentlemen, listen up. You got your instructions in the dressing room, all right? I want you to obey my commands at all times, protect yourself at all times. Now, touch them up and come out fighting.
In my fantasy, we'd have the 3 Diazes fighting for the 4 belts in a round robin. But 2 Diazes promised just about all the brawling that we could stand.
Juan Diaz and Julio Diaz set for tonight's main event. Lennox, what should we be looking for early in this fight?
Well, you know, I'm going to look at Juan Diaz is definitely going to come after the other Diaz and really test his heart. But I know Julio's prepared to move around and use his jab.
Juan Diaz in the blue, Julio Diaz in the green. Juan Diaz likes to keep a very busy pace.
Usually that's a pace that other fighters are so unused to that it becomes a tremendous disadvantage for them. But in the early rounds, especially, Juan Diaz can be vulnerable.
Right hand over the top by Juan Diaz. Lennox, we talked extensively with Julio Diaz about his boxing ability. He feels comfortable going backward.
And that's what he's doing. He did say that that's what he's going to do in this fight, and he's doing it. And he's not getting hit with any silly punches right now, only when he stands still. But, you know, the kind of pressure Juan gives you, he makes you want to stop and fight him. So that's why I believe there's going to be a lot of fireworks, a lot of punches thrown in this fight.
Juan Diaz in the blue told us that, he's been working on his technique more, but as the fight wears on, his inner Mexican kicks in.
And that's what happens to some young boxers. They don't have a little discipline, and he's working on the discipline of taking his time and using some poise in there. Good combination by Juan, and pick his shots.
He is unusual for a pressure fighter in the sense that he is not a power puncher. Most pressure fighters, to be successful, have to put hurt on their opponents immediately. He is a quick-handed puncher who tries to break you down through attrition.
Well, we saw him during the Pacquiao-Barrera rebroadcast as he was warming up, swinging a baseball bat. And he's one of those doubles hitters. He's not a home run hitter.
See, already Diaz is doing more fighting than he anticipated he would have to.
Julio Diaz in the green.
Did I say just Diaz?
Larry, you could just say Juan and Julio.
I usually don't like to be that familiar with the fighters on the air, but we may be forced to here. A little abrasion alongside the right eye of Julio Diaz. But he's holding his own in this round. A good, brisk, tough round.
There's the bell to end round number 1. Good pace in the first round.
Listen, Juan. Listen. I need more jabs, okay? You're walking in. Water. I need more jabs, okay? You're walking in. Okay? Now, your head moves good. Got a good right hand. Now, I need more.
Abro para las cuerdas, ¿eh? Y nomás estás usando como cuando él le hace pa, 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 pa.
Well, he goes
y luego
back,
usted,
back.
¿ok? Luego usted sígale,
Go back,
¿ok?
then hit him.
No está usando ese paso para atrás. No
You're not using that
tampoco.
one step back.
Te estás quedando como
You're staying there.
Pero no estás apuchando. Tiene que quedar y vamos, cabrón.
And here we see a good combination by Juan Diaz. Good array of punches.
Let's go.
3 of them hitting Julio.
Julio says that other fighters have panicked against Diaz, and there's some truth to that. And that he believes he won't because of his experience.
You heard his trainer, Lee Espinosa, in his corner, caution him about the fact that you're standing there and you're fighting with it. You're fighting his game plan. Take that step back. Don't just stand there. But Juan Diaz seems to bring all of his opponents into his comfort level.
Well, his trainer told him the right thing to do, because what happens when Juan throws a combination, he accepts it, but he doesn't fire back, and his trainer was telling him to fire back.
And another result of quick hands like this is that the opponent of Juan Diaz becomes a little bit reluctant to punch sometimes because he doesn't know what's coming back at him.
Lennox, is Julio making a mistake here, standing in the wheelhouse of Juan Diaz?
Well, he feels that he can out-punch him and out-box him right now, but I think that's the wrong move. He should be using his reach, because he seems like he has longer arms and better movement. So he needs to give Juan Diaz some different angles and capitalize off of them.
Good uppercut.
See, standing in front of Juan Diaz is a mistake, because you're standing in front of what I call a good puncher, and any one of those shots can hurt you or cut you. So you don't want to take that type of chance.
Julio Diaz in the green, not using the movement that he said he would.
Well, now he's trying to muscle Juan Diaz because he's the bigger guy, and he thinks it would be to his advantage if he can push him back, but he's going to pay a price for that.
Does switch southpaw, something Julio said he likes to do during the course of a fight.
And Julio's trying something that he's seen work on other boxers, You know, guys that give you that pressure, if you push them back, then they can't fight going backwards. But, you know, you're right, Larry. It's a big sacrifice to do that.
Most of those punches there missing from Juan Diaz. Slaps a left to the head. Nice combination by Juan Diaz. He responds to Julio Diaz.
Julio Diaz is saying he's not taking a step back. He wants to punch it out.
Great action through the first 2 rounds.
Vinimos a boxear también poquito. Tienes que boxear.
We're here to box. We have to box. You know how to move. Remember, you're staying in there. You have to be moving around. Don't stay close.
On November the 3rd, it's a terrific matchup of undefeated 168-pound champions Joe Calzaghe and Miguel Kessler. Calzaghe versus Kessler live from Cardiff, Wales at a special time, 9 p.m. Eastern. Then 1 week later, 147-pound champion Miguel Cotto puts his title on the line against Sugar Shane Mosley. Part of a fantastic fall here on HBO.
Juan Diaz has been celebrated because he is a college student, a senior at University of Houston downtown. He wants to go on to law school. Worked as a lobbyist in Washington this past summer. None of that will help him in the ring, but he seems to do all right.
And Julio Diaz in the green, who was married at the age of 18, is the father of 3, has his own construction company, and is also getting involved in some boxing promotion of his own, Kid Diaz Boxing Promotions. 2 very nice young men.
Incidentally, Juan is doing a good job with the pressure, but he needs to throw more jabs before he comes in.
Having tested his strength against Juan Diaz in the last round, Julio is now finding what's in his best comfort zone, which is to stand back, box, punch him, not to try to bully him. You can't bully the bull.
And Larry, that's no bull.
He is just relentless.
Some of that blocked by Julio Diaz, not all of it. Juan Diaz rips a combination to the head of Julio Diaz.
No, Julio Diaz was doing a good job boxing, but now he's elected to come in, still trying to push back Juan, still not working.
Well, maybe he's decided he can take these punches. They aren't damaging punches. They're just cumulative punches. And so that he feels that maybe he has to do that.
Doesn't it just play into the whole Juan Diaz strategy, though?
Well, it does, but he makes you play into it. He determines what the pace of the fight is.
And Julio said this is the fight that he wanted. He wanted Juan Diaz. And he's been calling for him for a while. And he's got what he wanted.
Well, they're 2 young fighters fighting like the whole future is in front of them. Not like old guys whose future is in the past.
End of the 3rd. Mentioned Juan Diaz would like to become a lawyer. He'll graduate with a political science degree next year from the University of Houston downtown. A couple of years ago, Larry, before the Fernando Vargas-Felix Trinidad fight in Nevada, Juan was fighting on a card in Las Vegas the night before, and 3 of his high school teachers from the Contemporary Learning Center, on their own dime, flew out to see Juan Diaz perform. He was so moved by that on his own dime, he has flown those 3 teachers here just outside of Chicago to see him fight in a world title fight.
Stay tight and jump with the jab.
Craig McDaniel, the woodshop teacher, Jack Powell, the computer science teacher, and Tanya Malone, the drug counselor from his high school. Let's take a look at Harold Letterman's scorecard through 3.
Okay, Bob, 3-0, 30-27, Juan Diaz. Bob, I gotta tell you, Julio Diaz is fighting Juan Diaz's fight, and that's all there is to it. In the Angel Manfredi fight, in the Ricky Keeler's fight, Julio Diaz moved side to side, just like you saw there. He hasn't moved side to side once in this entire fight. He's standing in the middle of the ring, banging with Juan Diaz, and Juan Diaz is out banging him. I mean, Julio's got to stop moving. And one other thing, Julio Diaz using those elbows illegally. Watch the elbows and the forearms. When Juan gets inside, Julio pushes him off with the forearm. You can't do it. 3-0, Juan Diaz.
And now you see that Julio Diaz has turned southpaw, looking for something that will work against a buzzsaw. And there you see the jab. Turned southpaw, and he just jabbed right over his front hand, Lennox.
And, you know, I'm an orthodox boxer, and my trainer always said, just learn one style and perfect that style. And there are some boxers out there that can box both ways, but only some that can make it effective.
Once Julio Diaz languishes on the inside, Juan Diaz tags him. Those punches blocked by Juan Diaz.
You see, and one of the things that happens here, Julio Diaz is a pretty good puncher, but he has to shorten his punches up, and so he's not getting his normal power from his punches in order to be able to get to Diaz to Juan Diaz before he gets to him. You see that? They're like almost like arm punches. They're not power punches.
Partly because he's looking to get out of the way while he's throwing the punches. You know, it's always easier going forward throwing punches than going backwards. When you're going backwards throwing punches, it's like you're taking some sting off your own punches.
The other thing Juan Diaz has done through the first 3 rounds is he has paid attention to Julio Diaz's body.
See, what Julio Diaz should be doing, he should be taking that step back and letting Juan Diaz come into his punches and stopping and coming out with his power punches. It's like bringing him into a trap. Take that step back, Juan's gonna come forward, then throw a combination. But that's not what he was doing. That's not what he's doing now. He has done it in the past, but he's, you know, he's doing all kinds of different things now and seeing what can work for him.
End of the 4th round. And there is Juan Diaz's mom, Olivia. Juan still lives with mom and dad, Olivia and Fidencio, who are originally from Mexico. And it's got to be tough watching your son.
Especially the way he fights.
Bought his dad a ranch, tried to buy his mom a car. She said, no thanks, save your money.
Give him water, give him water, give him water, give him water.
Okay, just relax, son. Get that rhythm. Just relax.
Do you want me to do the score?
And here we see a good array of punches by both boxers, trading punches.
Let's go, check it out. Get that ice out of the way.
Believe it or not, Julio Diaz, according to the CompuBox numbers, has been a hair busier, but Juan Diaz laying at a much better percentage.
don't recall the last time I've seen a fighter quite like Juan Diaz. There have been a few down through the decades.
Larry, it's pure blue collar, isn't it? Just a hard day's work.
It's a hard day's work, but there's, I mean, you can't coach hand speed. He has hand speed.
Two things you can't coach, hand speed and heart. And he has both of them.
Yeah. And one of the reasons he's able to sustain this pace, he believes, is that he trains in an unusual way. He swims every day. And he believes that they have enabled him to keep punching like that for an hour.
There's a lot of credit to his conditioning coach, Brian Caldwell. Again, it's Juan Diaz just putting volumes of punches together. Not all of it landing, but
I tell you, it looks good, and it seems like he's in great shape when he does that. And you know, it's a crowd-pleasing style when you throw a combination, and it's like a 6-punch combination.
And
fans love that.
It also will catch the eye of the officials if it's a close round.
A left hand by Julio Diaz, but then Juan comes back with a shot to the body. Nice. Is this where Julio Diaz needs to keep this fight?
Well, Julio needs to do what he's doing, jab a lot, and use his reach, because right now, in close, he's at a disadvantage. I think he should use his reach. So he wants to get Juan Diaz back into the rope so badly, but that's going to take a lot of work, take a lot of energy out of him. Plus, he's getting punched at the same time.
Julio Diaz does good work to the body. Juan Diaz comes back with a flurry of his own. Right hand punctuated that combination.
Julio Diaz been in the gymnasiums with his older brother since he's 6 years old. So he has seen a lot of this, but never in a fight as a professional.
Juan Diaz just threw a brilliant combination at the end of the round.
Ya se cansó el vato, ya se cansó.
Pero tienes que hacer algo. You have to do something. Don't let this guy hit you like crazy. He's pushing you like a woman. When you push him, he move back. And then he push you back. Don't let him do that. Push him. He's tired. You have to use your arms. We cannot be yelling from out here. He's got to come from you.
All I got to do, stay low behind the jab. I need more jabs. Okay. Stay low behind the jab.
Step with the jab, okay?
Got you. All I got to do.
The body work is good, okay?
Feel good.
All right, take your
If you look inside the CompuBox numbers from round 5, it really speaks to what Juan Diaz is all about. He landed 56 of 115, 55 of 109 power shots. There's no jab there. 1 of 6 with it. Forget about the jab. He's going to just fight his fight.
And he's not even breathing. He looks really relaxed and comfortable in there.
He says that school is his real job and boxing is just a pastime. But you don't fight like this if it's something that's a pastime. You've put in the work.
Bob Papa, Larry Burchett, Lennox Lewis from Hoffman Estates, Illinois, just outside of Chicago, the Sears Center. Juan Diaz in the blue, Julio Diaz in the green in a lightweight unification bout. Juan Diaz in the blue has controlled the action with a relentless attack on Julio Diaz.
And Julio seemed kind of frustrated there for a moment, tried to use his head to push Juan Diaz back into the ropes, but the referee warned him.
Gino Rodriguez, our referee.
Juan Diaz does not have the picture-perfect prize fighter's body, and that can deceive opponents. They think he's soft They think you can push him around. You can't.
As a kid, his dad took him to Willie Savannah's gym. And Willie took a look at the chubby kid and said, this kid won't last 2 weeks. 10 years later, they're still together. Like we've seen a lot of the same here through almost 6 rounds. What can Julio Diaz do to change this tide of Juan Diaz that keeps rolling in?
Well, like I said, he needs to take a step back and allow Juan Diaz to come and step into the pocket, then throw his combination. But right now, what he's allowing Juan to do is throw a combination of punches, which Julio's getting hit with like 3 out of 6 of the combinations, and you know it's not looking too good on the judges' cards.
Yeah. Well, and that's the key here, Lennox. This looks like another round for Juan Diaz. If it is, that could put him ahead 6-0, and means he just have to win one of the remaining rounds to win the fight, unless something happens that doesn't look like it can happen.
Juan Diaz has been down a couple times. Eleazar Contreras dropped him back in 2003, got up to win a decision in that fight. Another combination from Juan Diaz, most of it missing. And Julio lands a combination after the bell. There's David Diaz, the other part of this trifecta of lightweight title holders. He hails from Chicago, former U.S. Olympian, who actually moved down in weight since turning pro, and he's another workman-like kid.
He looks like it's a boring fight for him, but I know he's taking good notice of both fighters, and he's looking at his other brother from another mother.
Let him feel your punches. He's just going easy with it. You have to hit him hard. You have to win this fight. I don't know where you're going to get it from, but you have to win this one. You got to win all the rounds. You haven't done any boxing.
Relax. Get on your rhythm. Get your rhythm. You gotta stay tight.
And there's Mom Olivia, Juan Diaz's mom, looking on anxiously as we get set for the start of round number 7. Harold Letterman have it scored through 6.
6 rounds to nothing, 60-54, Juan Diaz. Bob, I gotta tell you, I gotta answer your question as to what Julio Diaz can do. He can start to move side to side, use that entire ring and box. He's a very good boxer. Anybody who's seen him before knows he can box. He hasn't boxed in 6 rounds. His choices are box or lay down and let the referee count to 11. And that's the only 2 things he can do. I mean, he can't fight like this. He's fighting Juan Diaz's fight, and he's getting out punched. 6-0, Juan Diaz.
If he could box him, he would box him, Harold.
Larry, he's fighting like he's got a high ankle sprain or turf toe. I mean, he ain't moving.
No, well, that's because Diaz is right in his chest.
And Lennox, Larry, that's what Juan Diaz brings. He dictates the terms of the fight. He gets people to fight his fight.
See, after Juan Diaz throws his combination, he has to think defense after that, because obviously Julio's going to come back with his punches. He's just waiting for Juan to finish throwing punches, then he wants to come back with his own punches. Still, Julio's trying to push Juan back, but it's still not working.
It's very noticeable still that Diaz really doesn't get much. Julio Diaz doesn't get a lot of leverage on his punches at close range. Now you see Juan Diaz is jabbing the boxer.
And it's a good jab. It's a good solid jab, and it's fast and crisp.
Swelling under the left eye of Julio Diaz in the green.
So that Juan Diaz can take a little bit of a blow this way if he wants to during a round. and just get by on his jab.
According to the CompuBox numbers in this round, Juan Diaz has landed 17 of 28 jabs. That's 61%. That's not even part of his game plan.
He's just a fighter. A real fighter. Not that Julio Diaz isn't. He is a very solid fighter.
Juan Diaz had 110 amateur fights. Turned pro at the age of 16 in Mexico. And he's opening up on Julio Diaz again.
And this kind of a flurry will steal the round if it's close.
Juan did a good thing. While he was throwing that combination, he was moving around in the circle, not standing in the one spot, which is important.
On November the 18th, tune in for the premiere of our special 4-episode series, Mayweather Hatton 24/7. We'll take our cameras to Las Vegas and Manchester, England, for a revealing look at both Floyd Mayweather and Ricky Hatton as they prepare for their upcoming showdown. Then on December the 8th, HBO pay-per-view brings you the live fight between Mayweather and Hatton with the welterweight championship of the world at stake.
They're going to stop the fight. They're going to stop the fight. They are.
They're not going to stop it, baby. Just box.
Come on.
You're going to box. Jab and move. Jab and move. Let's go.
You have to do it. Come on, wake up, baby.
You're going to stop this fight if you don't start fighting.
Remember, you got to throw good shots, hard shots, duro los shots.
Hard punches.
Stay low.
Take us out.
Power jab, baby. The power of the dream, too, okay?
Let's go, let's go, let's go. Go.
I'm concerned in Julio Diaz's corner. You heard trainer Lee Espinoza say, hey, they're going to stop this fight if you don't get something going.
Well, I just think he's trying to motivate him. I don't see any signs that that is actually in the works at this moment.
You know, Julio has to decide what really works for him. Is boxing inside working for him, or is boxing outside working for him? It really all comes down to his game plan.
Yeah, but now it's almost too late, Lennox. He's so far behind. He's got to make something happen. Winning a few rounds by showing us that he can outbox him, if he can, is not going to get the deal done.
And don't discount all the body work that Juan Diaz has laid on Julio Diaz to take away some of that movement from round number 1 right through this end of the 7th. And again, Julio cautioned for leading with his head.
When Julio Diaz fought Castillo opened up cuts under both eyebrows with his head.
When Castillo stopped him in the 10th round of that fight, he was ahead on all 3 judges' cards. Right hand to the body by Juan Diaz. Lennox, this switch to southpaw that Julio said he would use seems to have not paid one single dividend.
Not one. In fact, when he switches, he gets hit even more.
Sometimes when the fighter switches, it buys him a little bit of time while his opponent figures it out. But Juan Diaz doesn't even give him a little time when he sees him turn to southpaw. He is the nearest thing we've seen to a perpetual motion machine in boxing. It's not a style that's going to have him fighting when he's 40, but he'll have a hell of a good time until he's about 28 or 30.
He just turned 24 back on September 17th.
By the time he's 40, he'll be either the mayor of Houston or the governor of Texas.
We'll roll to the end of the 8th round. All Juan Diaz in the blue.
Chicago is a lightweight town. Its greatest fighter, Barney Ross, lightweight champion who went on to win a welterweight champion. Here you see him in his last fight against the super great Henry Armstrong back in 1938. Barney Ross, Henry Armstrong. Earlier, he fought 3 fights against welterweight champion Jimmy McLarnin and beat him twice. McLarnin, an outstanding welterweight champion. Barney Ross. What a fighter.
Chicago's best.
Oh, the fight's being stopped.
It is being stopped. Corner of Julio Diaz stopping the fight.
And you know, it's not a bad call by the corner because he's really working from a deficit.
And here we saw almost a replica of Juan Diaz's fight against Acelino Freitas. There comes a time when a fighter says, I just don't want to live with this fist in my face every second of the fight.
And they say pressure busts a pipe, and it definitely does.
So Juan Diaz moves to 33-0, gets his 17th stoppage, and for the second fight in a row, as Larry pointed out, same as with Acelino Freitas, Juan Diaz's opponent does not answer the bell to start the 9th round. He just does it with volume. He's a doubles hitter, but a great doubles hitter. And Lennox, it's amazing how he is able to take a fight and take away his opponent's strength. For Julio Diaz, it was backing up, it was boxing, keeping range, but Juan Diaz gets the fight to his comfort area.
And you know, he just imposed his will on Julio Diaz, and Julio really couldn't take it because you know, he wanted to move around, he wanted to box, but he couldn't do that.
So Gino Rodriguez get the word from the Julio Diaz corner that he was not willing to continue, and Juan Diaz now holds 3 of the 4 lightweight championship belts as Julio Diaz suffers loss number 4 in his career.
And he had to be careful what he wished for. This is what he wished for. He wanted Juan Diaz so badly, he had him in front of his face all night.
And I think he realized that despite the fact that Juan has said that boxing is his hobby and his law degree and his future outside of the ring is his work.
Imagine if he takes it serious.
I think he takes it a lot more serious than Julio Diaz believed it would be. Juan Diaz came into the ring with his 2 belts, and now he leaves with Julio Diaz's belt as well, as Diaz, Julio that is, does not answer the bell for the start of the 9th round. Lennox, it's just very impressive how this 24-year-old stands in the pocket, shows tremendous composure, and breaks down the will of his opponent, as he does time and time again.
Yeah, Julio wanted to move and box, couldn't do that. He wanted to stand and box, couldn't do that. Just too much pressure to deal with. Couldn't stand it, couldn't deal with it. Wasn't able to gain any strength from it, and this is the results.
For the official time of the stoppage, ring announcer Michael Buffer.
Ladies and gentlemen, the bell rang to begin round number 9. The official time becomes 1 second of round number 9 as the blue corner, Julio Diaz, advised referee Gino Rodriguez that he would no longer continue. The winner by TKO victory, now the unified WBA, WBO, and IBF lightweight champion of the world, still undefeated, Juan, the baby bull Diaz.
Juan Diaz dominates Julio Diaz through 8 rounds. And Mom Olivia, tears of joy as her baby bull Juan picks up win number 33 and his 17th stoppage. We take a look at the final punch numbers from this fight. It was all Juan Diaz as he just attacked Julio Diaz in this fight. You see the total thrown in favor of Julio Diaz, but Juan much more accurate. Juan even used the jab in the later rounds, but his bread and butter, the power punches. That's where Juan Diaz makes his hay, and he dug in deep and He was awesome, landing 47% of his power punches in the fight, 282 of 606, and Diaz, really, Julio that is, had no answer tonight. So the baby bull at 24 years of age just keeps rolling along. Juan Diaz is with Juan Diaz. Larry?
Thank you very much, Bob. Congratulations, Juan. Was this easier than you anticipated with a fighter of his caliber?
Well, you know, I don't know if it felt easy, but in there, I was the one taking the punches, and it was pretty tough. He was tougher than I thought. He surprised me tonight.
In what way? Because it seemed you were just too quick for him most of the time.
Well, he stayed in there with me. I thought he was going to box a little bit more, but he was in there training with me. And, you know, Julio can punch. I give him that. He's a very, very tough warrior.
Did this fight mean more to you because, as you said earlier, it was personal?
Oh, yeah. I feel like I'm on top of the world now. I feel like a King Kong right now.
All right, you've got 3 of the 4 belts. There are 3 potential opponents out there. Joel Casamayor, who many people regard as the linear lightweight champion. David Diaz, who's the 4th belt. And there's been some talk of Manny Pacquiao, but no indication that he's ready to fight you yet. Give us your thoughts.
Well, as you mentioned, all those fighters are great fighters, you know, but he just beat a legendary Mexican fighter, Pacquiao, and I think that it's time for him to step up with a young Mexican warrior.
Yes. Thank you very much, and congratulations, Juan. Just this last thought, guys. Yogi Berra once said, if people don't want to come, you can't stop them. 2 fighters, one from Texas, one from California. Why were they fighting in Chicago? This is a fight that should have had a full house of enthusiasts for both fighters somewhere out there. Bob?
All right, thank you very much, Larry. An odd place, but it is in David Diaz's backyard, and he is the other belt holder. But it really was an impressive performance by Juan Diaz. He took Julio Diaz out of his game, took his game plan totally away. He dictated the terms of the fight. Lennox, he's only 24, but he has tremendous savvy. He has tremendous poise. And we know he's smart outside of the ring, but he's pretty smart in the ring as well, isn't he?
He's smart inside the ring. He throws a great jab. I mean, the jab is always on point. You know, he moves ahead with it, and he applies constant pressure, and there's only a couple boxers that can deal with that, but he hasn't found one yet. So his next opponent, I'm sorry for his next opponent, whoever he goes up against, but it sure will be a good fight. Well,
this is the Diaz era in the lightweight division, and right now it's Juan Diaz that is the holder of 3 of the 4 championship belts, and the Juan Diaz era in the lightweight division looks bright for the foreseeable future. Well, we started this evening off with a look back at Pacquiao-Barrera, the second fight between these 2 great champions. And when you think of Marco Antonio Barrera, after the fight, he announced that that would be his last fight in the ring. And you think about Erik Morales, who earlier this year tried to move up to lightweight and lost to David Diaz of Chicago for his lightweight belt, which sort of signified the end of a great era of Erik Morales and Marco Antonio Barrera. A special era in boxing. Larry Merchant has more.
For a decade, Marco Antonio Barrera and Erik Morales were the biggest little men in boxing. Fierce, passionate warriors, they spearheaded a golden age of featherweights in heavyweight America. Morales was born over a gym in tough Tijuana. Barrera came from a middle-class background in Mexico City. When they collided in 2000, Barrera, once the faster rising star, had lost twice and was given little chance.
What a fight! Here comes Barrera! Here comes Morales. Erik Morales has never lost a fight. Marco Antonio Barrera has never wanted one more.
They fought with such improbable ferocity, Morales winning a disputed decision, Barrera winning hearts and minds, that their images shadowed each other for the rest of their careers, and no doubt beyond. By the rematch, Barrera had actually overtaken Morales in popularity. He defeated the British puncher showman, Prince Nassim Hamed.
He wants to close the show with authority.
He had restored the order of his proud Mexican heritage. Nothing could top the original, but Morales Barrera too came close. And this time, with a late rally, Barrera got the decision. That set up the trilogy, but not before Barrera again was beaten, this time stopped by the young Filipino typhoon, Manny Pacquiao. Morales and Barrera needed that third fight to remind themselves and us who they had been at their best.
A raging passion on the part of both fighters.
By then, their rivalry, like Ali and Frazier, was personal as well as professional. Barrera settled their differences in the ring. He won Act 3 decisively. Morales would go on to regain his faltering status with a strong performance over Pacquiao. But in rematches, Pacquiao KO'd him twice, reeling him toward retirement. Barrera survived Pacquiao in last week's last hurrah, but that's all. The next time Marco Antonio Barrera and Eric Morales meet, if not greet, will be at the Hall of Fame. Adios, amigos.
If you've missed any part of tonight's telecast, you can catch it in its entirety on HBO 2 tomorrow at 9 a.m. or 4:45 p.m. Juan Diaz versus Julio Diaz will be rebroadcast a final time, also on HBO 2 at 11 p.m. on this coming Tuesday. On November the 3rd, World Championship Boxing returns with a sensational matchup from the super middleweight division, when undefeated champions Joe Calzaghe and Miguel Kessler collide in front of an expected crowd of 60,000 fans in Cardiff, Wales. This fight will be broadcast live from the UK starting at a special time, 9 p.m. Eastern. On November the 13th, HBO Sports presents the latest installment in our Sports of the 20th Century documentary series, Michigan versus Ohio State, The Rivalry. This one-hour special takes a look at the storied history of a college football rivalry that dates back all the way to the 1890s. Coming up next on HBO, stay tuned for Real Sex, Some Like It Hot. So for our entire HBO crew, this is Bob Papa saying good night, and thanks for being with us.
This has been a presentation of HBO Sports.
I started boxing at the age of 9. I suppose at the first I always wanted to be a footballer, but after a year or two I realized my talent lied with my fists.
My family has been very supportive since I started boxing, even my mother.
My dad was a musician. Seems that the only one who can't sing in my family is me. At the end of the day, I had to find a way of doing something else.
My tattoo has no meaning. I just like science fiction. So I have some aliens and we have some Vikings. We are old Vikings in Denmark.
When I fight the dangerous opponents, then you see the best of me. And Kessler is a dangerous opponent, a very good fighter.
You can break down your opponent maybe a month before a fight, if you look him in the eye. The worst guy is a nice guy.
I don't fear any fighter. As far as I'm concerned, I'm the best in the world.
I have the right mentality and I'm more hungry.
I'm the world champion, and I will prove it once again.
It's gonna get a surprise.
It's Duran and Leonard all over again.